up a dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, so I remember right. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild member ride. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Spectrum. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, and today we are live in studio on the Untold Radio Network. That's right, guys. We are live here in studio, so if you guys have any questions or comments throughout the show today, please get them in the comments section, and we'll get them on the show as soon as possible. Coming up, guys, it is Christmas just around the corner. If you are looking for that book for all of your Bigfooters on your Christmas list, check out Bigfoot is Hiding. It is a 10-year anthology of all kinds of research, investigation, and experiences on a very special 80-acre private property in Upper Michigan. Everything from Bigfoot to some dogman instances, black cats, and other strange occurrences. Check it out. You can get it on Amazon.com for just $35 for paperback or hardcover, or you can go to WisconsinCaps.com and get an autographed copy. Coming up next year, guys, the Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Society is going to be in Oshkosh in February at the Beyond the Veil event. We are going to be at the Midwest Meta Paracon in April. And we are going to be at the Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention May 9th, 10th, and 11th. If you guys can't make it out in person to that is going to be in Appleton, Wisconsin. You can grab yourself a virtual ticket and watch all of the speakers live from the comfort and coziness of your own home anywhere in the entire world for just $5. If you get your tickets before December 16th, that's just coming up here on Monday, you will be entered to win a set of Northwoods brick cryptids. You can get yourself a Mothman, a Flatwoods Monster, and a Bigfoot. That's right. One lucky person who has purchased their tickets in advance will be entered to win those, and we will be announcing that on my show on Monday, along with some other guest speakers that are going to be coming up. It's going to be a great time. That's all I got on that. We're going to be going out Bigfooting on Friday, and then the convention is Saturday, and then we're doing a paranormal investigation locally on Sunday as well. So big 3-day event coming up there. And we got some other stuff coming up. If you want all this and more, head on over to wisconsincaps.com and click on our public events tab, and you can get all that information. We are live here today, so if you want to show your support for all things here on the Untold Radio Network and join the conversation, here's how.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
We are live again in studio, guys, and today my guest is here to answer the question, what would you say to a naked space alien? That's right, Paul Seaburn is here today. He has had a long, strange trip to paranormal news writing, began with a career in tech support, management, and sales for 2 successful computer industry startups. A lifelong love of comedy led him to try stand-up, but his talents for writing resulted instead in a second career penning jokes for The Tonight Show with Jay Leno, other television shows, many top comedians, an Emmy-winning children's show, a jazz comedy show on public radio, and as a contributor to over 30 collections of humor, trivia, and puzzles. Paul brought his writing and humor skills to the paranormal and strange world at Mysterious Universe, where he could finally scratch an itch he's had since a youth to become a cross between Robert Ripley and Johnny Carson. What Would You Say to a Naked Space Alien is a collection of his favorite reports and encounters with quirky extraterrestrials that turned out to be more fun than fearsome, and his thoughts on what he and you might do in the same situation. So guys, we are here live with Paul Seaburn. Welcome to the show, man.
Thank you, Barnaby. What a great introduction. I really appreciate that. I've been sitting here writing down my Christmas list after listening to your promo there. Thank you so much. I'm done.
Well, there you go. That's what we hope
wow.
for.
I didn't think that would happen. I also got an earworm from your music. The
Untold Radio Network.
Please. There is I wrote an article, a blurb in my last article of Mysterious Universe. There is an earworm eraser that was just to the internet. So just Google earworm eraser. It's a 40-second audio clip, and it's all different kinds of sounds. So it kind of bounces from style to style, pace, rhythm, volume, frequency, and it allegedly, I haven't tested it thoroughly yet, but it allegedly removes all earworms from your brain. No regular worms, just earworms. So check it out. and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm excited to be here. This should be fun.
I'm excited to have you, man. I've listened to a couple other interviews, and you were a blast, and I can't wait. But I'm thinking about your earworm eraser here, and there's I can't think of some DJ, I can't think of his name, but every year he puts out a compilation of the top 100 songs for the year, and he mashes them all together. And it is the worst earworm, DJ Earworm, actually. Now that I think of it, that's who he is. And he does them every year, and he names the song, and the whole song flows, but it's a compilation of all the other songs put together, and they're really cool. Look them up if you.
I gotta find that. That sounds like fun. Yeah, I was in radio for a while. DJs are strange people to begin with, so that's the perfect kind of thing to come from a DJ. So I'm gonna look for that. That ought to be fun.
Absolutely.
Now that I have the earworm eraser.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right, guys. Well, welcome everyone that's live in chat. Thank you all for coming along. She says also, I love the intro. Yeah, I am always really excited that whenever I have guests on the show and I play that song, you can watch people dancing. Like, because no one else can see what you're doing except I can down there. And there's some really interesting things that go on backstage during the opening of the show. So, all right. Well, we are here to talk all things weird and Fortean and comedic and stuff. So, but with everything that's going on in the world, it's more important than ever to take a break, because I think there's a lot of stuff going on, and I think that this is important, and bringing a lighter side to all this stuff as well is very important. But before we get to that, let's talk a little bit about bring people up to speed on what's been going on here, because like we've had a lot of interesting things going on in the government and stuff with disclosure, and we just had another two actually Senate hearings. We had the one with Lou Elizondo and the other three gentlemen. I can't remember their names because they didn't do much for the hearing other than Lou and.
I'm sorry. I was exactly going to say the same thing. If they made that little of an impression on you, that pretty much sums up the hearings. So
yeah. They were okay, but not too much. They basically had their one little comments that they knew of. The one guy was talking about his paper that he wrote based on other whistleblowers. He was the journalist guy. And then there was a scientist that was talking about how NASA should get involved more. And the other guy on the end was talking about the missing emails that he got.
Yeah, they were interesting. If you're not in the paranormal business like we are, we're always disappointed. I think they were good for the general public because the more we inform the general public on what may be going on and what may be being covered up, the better off we'll be. But it's disappointing for anyone who wants to see, pictures of spaceships or, the arm of a dead alien. We're disappointed in pictures now. We have to have the real thing. So unfortunately, that's where we're at with the hearings. But I'm glad. Again, I wish that. As much as I love the paranormal world and looking at UFOs and alien stories, I wish our politicians were doing something else. But that's all I'm going to get into as far as politics, though. It's my motto: real news, sometimes strange, always funny. I stay away from politics because it's never funny. So let's just go with that. Today's politics, anyways.
Absolutely. Looking back at it, though, talking about how much all this stuff from going back to Roswell and, everything that's happened since then, we've always wanted, disclosure and the government revelations and stuff. And just the fact that we're having not one, but two congressional hearings in Congress within it was a week span. And the fact that they're bringing it up and having serious conversations about it is better than nothing at all. And just.
You better believe it, Barnaby. And the fact that the New York Times and the Washington Post and the Wall Street Journal and all of the major news networks are covering not only the hearings, but UFO sightings or UAP, whatever you want to call them, like the drone sightings that are happening all over the northern East Coast, New Jersey and New York right now. But 10 years ago that didn't happen. So I'm thrilled that that's going on. My mission with the book that you referred to is to introduce people to more kinds of aliens than just ET. Okay, there are so many unusual and interesting and funny alien encounters that have happened since Roswell and even before Roswell. And if we know, the more we know about them, the better we can be prepared for them. The more open we will be to welcoming them rather than treating them as enemies, which is always my fear. That's been my fear all my life. I've never been one of those people who says, we gotta shoot them all down. We gotta be afraid. I'm hoping they have a sense of humor, because then, then I'm in shape. I'm ready to go. Did you hear about the 2 aliens that walked into a bar? I'm ready.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. We're going to get all into your book in a minute here. I do want to touch, before we get to that, on, like you said, the drones over New England area. There was just that as well. Like you said, the fact that, you search drones and New Jersey, and there's so many reputable newspapers and news industries and stuff covering this story and talking about it. They're supposedly like the size of cars. These drones, they're not commercial drones. They're not something somebody's flying around. They're large drones. And some of the videos and stuff that you're seeing of these things are just weird. I don't know what to make of it and that, but
I talk to people whenever I go, and obviously you're in the same boat. When you go any place, as soon as somebody finds out what you do now, you get into these conversations. And I went to a reunion of one of the companies that I worked for back in my computer era, and one of my compadres was now in the drone business, of all things. So we immediately ran off in the corner and talked about drones. And boy, he blew me away with what they're working on at his company. So he's convinced. He somewhat convinced me that all these things we're seeing are being built by American corporations or foreign corporations equivalent to his. He says you would just not believe they can fly underwater or transport underwater and come back out. All those things that we thought were aliens, he says, no, I can do that too. Now, whether he was bragging, I don't know, but he sure sounded convincing to me. So, and then again, to go back to, it's our enemies. We just in the past 2 days, we heard about someone said, it's an Iranian mothership off the coast of New Jersey that's dropping the drones and sending them to New Jersey. Well, first of all, Iran would not be sending them to New Jersey. That's not even if they're gamblers, or if they're, or they're Bruce Springsteen fan, they're not going to send them to New Jersey. They would send them someplace more appropriate, to Washington or to some Air Force base. So take all those things with a grain of salt, because they're coming from people who don't know what it is, but they're being paid to say something, and that's what they say. So, be open. I don't want to say be skeptical, because that's such a bad word these days, but be open to the possibilities. You're right. They're huge. They are huge drones. But then again, I've worked for Mysterious Universe for 12 years, almost 13 now. And I remember probably about 6 years ago, there was a series of drone incidents over Colorado and Wyoming, where those two states meet. People were seeing drones in formation going over crops every night. So they first thought that they were some sort of farm drones, and the farmers all said it's not ours, and the government said it's not ours. And so whose are they? But those were big as well. I do remember that those were extremely large drones, and we commented about that at the time. Then they disappeared. So what happened? Nobody knows. No one, or somebody knows, no one is saying. And, we didn't get the right people drunk. That's why we don't know. That's my solution. I think that ultimately, the people who are going to spill the beans are people who worked in whatever organization it might be, and got fed up one night and went to a bar and happened to stumble across somebody like me or you. And we got interested, and we immediately began plying them with whatever their favorite adult beverage is, and bam, we know what happened. And then the Men in Black show up, and that's another story. So.
Yeah, even some of the news reports though have to, it's not enough that we're talking, oh gosh, there's these UFOs, UAPs flying over New Jersey. They have to sensationalize it even more. The one article I read says United States government shoots down drone mothership over New Jersey.
Oh,
And it shoots down the claim, but you have to read through half the article before they tell you that that's the use of the term. So they make it sound like they shot down this, UFO, and
I know.
Not at all.
Being part of the media, which we are,
Yep.
I understand writing headlines, and
Mhm.
unfortunately, you get desperate in this business. Sometimes you get desperate. You're under deadline, and you need the hits, and you write those headlines. But that doesn't justify it. And in particular, when you're talking about, I'm not talking about national security. They're talking about national security. So we shouldn't play those kinds of games when we're discussing something that might be a dangerous thing. But again, be honest, and we don't have that happening too often in the articles that are being published. Some people are good. The lady that works for the New York Times, Leslie Keene, and people like that, I think, are a little better at sticking to the facts. But even so, it's tough. Don't do those kinds of things. Leave that to the comedy writer. That's my area. Let me do those.
Absolutely. Well, let us bring our conversation around here now to your book, because you have an amazing book here, and not just talking about some of the stories and the UFO encounters and incidents and stuff, but you bring a comedic side to it, to not only just tell the story, but also bring light to it, to kind of get more people interested, because a lot of people are tired of the same thing, but change it up a little bit, and that's what we got here. So your book, what would you say to a naked space alien? Tell us all about it.
Oh, great. Well, you mentioned a name. I'll take you back to the beginning. You mentioned a name in my introduction, Robert Ripley. In our business, we always talk about Charles Fort. He's the godfather of Fortean research. But for me, Robert Ripley was my inspiration, and that goes back to when I was a kid. The Sunday paper the newspaper would have a comic section, which it still does. Nothing. Back then, it was a big thing. And every Sunday in the color section, there would be a page-long strip of stories called Ripley's Believe It or Not. And they were written by Robert Ripley. They were stories about aliens. There were stories about people who had weird accidents, like the famous one, the guy who drove a railroad spike through his skull accidentally and lived for many years without it affecting him in any way, other than he couldn't get a date and couldn't wear a hat. But besides that, he was somewhat normal. So I was fascinated by those kinds of stories. And when I would go to the grocery store with my mom, after buying all the cereal, I'd run to the checkout counter, because that's where the candy is, but also where Weekly World News and all the newspapers that talked about that kind of stuff were located. So, she was so embarrassed, that all the other moms are in the line looking at me like, where'd this kid come from? And she would blame it on my father. He was a bad influence on me. But so that's where it started. That's where my interest started. I went to a Catholic school. I have 16 years of Catholic education and 32 years of therapy to get over those 16 years. So I'm pretty good now, but I couldn't scratch that itch in Catholic school. The nuns didn't want us talking about aliens and weird stories like that. So I had to suppress it and keep it to myself and keep it to my own personal reading. I went into the computer business, as you mentioned, had a blast. I was in marketing and training for a while, and I used to give a lot of presentations. I was always up in front of people. I like to make people laugh. It works great in the sales situation. So I took a course from a comedy club in comedy writing, and as part of that, we performed on stage, and I did that, and I had a good time, and I ended up doing it more. I started getting booked, working as an opening act in the comedy business. That's when I found out I was a much better writer and I enjoyed writing more than I did performing. I could perform, but I really enjoyed writing it. couple of comedians knew that and asked me if I would consider writing for them, and that's where that happened. I'm cutting this story short. I eventually heard that Jay Leno was taking over Monday nights, filling in for Johnny Carson on the Tonight Show, and I sent him some material, and he called me back, and I proceeded to be one of his monologue writers for 10 years. Wonderful time. Jay's just an absolute fantastic person. He's helped a lot of comedy writers in the business, a lot of comedians, just a great person. So I continued to do that after I left the Tonight Show, and you ran through, they actually gave me, I didn't get the Emmy. I didn't get the Emmy nomination, but it's interesting that they gave somebody like me a job working on a children's show. I thought, holy smoke, they didn't check me out thoroughly enough. So
I got to ask, what show was that? Because it doesn't say.
It was called Taylor's Attic. We were on for 2 years on the PAX network, PAX, which was an independent network. We were also on a couple of cable networks, and it was about a guy, Taylor. He's a good friend of mine. He's a ventriloquist and a puppeteer. And the premise of the story is he was cheap. So he didn't pay his puppets anything, but he made a deal. When they retired, they could live in his attic for free. So hence the name Taylor's Attic. And every story would open with him coming into the attic through a hole in the floor, telling his wife he'll be down in a minute. And then he would close the door, and there was a dust ball and a roach, a bunch of mice, a professor, a sumo wrestler of all things. We had really weird stuff. And they would just go on adventures of things in the attic or adventures of their mind. Think Sid Croft and those guys in early Muppets before they got corporatized. That's kind of what we were striving for. Our goal was to be like the Rocky and Bullwinkle of the 2000s. That's when the show was on. So we made it through 2 seasons. We had the papers all set to sign for the 3rd season, and half of our funding fell through. So that's just Hollywood. That's the way Hollywood works. We were never able to find someone to replace that investment. But Taylor's Attic, there's the videos are still available on Amazon. I'll plug it. I don't make any money on it anymore, but fun if you got little kids. Fun show. Nothing alien on it. So let's see, where were I? I didn't take English. I need Grammarly. I should have an online Grammarly here, correcting my grammar here. So Robert Ripley. So I needed a job. I moved back to Cleveland. I'm born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. I was transferred to Houston, where I worked for many years. I was lucky enough to be able to work for Jay on the Tonight Show while living in Houston. I just faxed him material every day. Came back to Cleveland to take care of some members of my family, and I needed a job. And it just so happened I saw an ad on Craigslist for what looked like writing funny news items, or news dialogue about real news items. So I had just been doing that for another online firm. So I sent a bunch of my stuff, and and this turned out to be Mysterious Universe. They contacted me and said, "This is exactly what we want you to do, what we're looking for, except we want you to write about aliens and Bigfoot and ghost and weird science and other paranormal things." And I said, "Sure, I'll try it. Let's see how it goes." I was not in tune to the business as I am now. So I did not have high expectations, but in show business, it pays to not have high expectations because you have no control over anything. So I started writing, and here I am 13 years later. I'm the editor, head writer. If you think of Mysterious Universe, hopefully you think of me after the 2 guys who own it, Ben and Aaron. Been a blast. It's been an absolute blast. And it inspired me to collect stories, and UFOs are my favorite, not my specialty, but aliens and UFOs are my favorite. During COVID, now we finally get to the book. So during COVID, I wanted to write a book, and I thought, what can I do? And I had this story about a guy in Georgia. He was 17 years old at the time. He lived on a farm, and a spaceship landed in his field. This is his story. It happened in the 50s, I believe. Spaceship landed in his yard. Door opens. A beautiful, shapely female alien comes out. Shapely in that she had the shape of a human female of the Playboy magazine type for the older listeners of the show, except for her head. Her head was your standard alien, big on top, pointy on the bottom, almond eyes. She sees him, he sees her. She proceeds to begin to fall in love with him. She starts taking her clothes off. He's never had the experience, let's put it that way. So he proceeds to take his clothes off. And within a short period of time, they had 50 hybrid alien children who lived on the farm. Now, I don't remember where his parents were at that time, but somehow they were not, the hybrid children were only apparent to him, along with other female aliens and the males. Now, the males were small, standard ET gray aliens. The females availed themselves to him as well. So that's how he ended up with the 50 hybrid. He took care of them, they gave him mugs on Father's Day. He went up to the ship. He went to the home planet. Good guy. He wanted to tell the world about it, and no one would believe him. He would go to UFO club meetings in the Georgia area, and nobody believed him. It was just too wild, too unbelievable. So he wanted to take pictures of them, and they said, no, you can't take pictures. He said, well, I can paint. Would you let me paint your picture? And that's what he did. He started painting them. Of course, since the whole thing began with them being naked and having children, those were the paintings that he focused on the most. So he tried to show them to other people in the alien, in the UFO research area, and they all said, we don't believe this at all. You need better evidence than this. In somewhere around 2015, he got a documentary film company to do a documentary about him, and that's how I found out about it. It's called Love and Saucers. You can look it up. It tells that story and then shows all of the paintings that he has made. And now he's already in his 60s, maybe even in his 70s. So this was he finally made it. And I saw the documentary, and I wrote a review of it. And I treat all encounters the same way. If you tell me that you saw something, I believe that you believe you saw something, unless I was there or you bring me, a solid piece of evidence. I can't honestly say that I believe you, that I believe what you saw was what you think you saw. So I gave him a legitimate story. I told a story. I'm a storyteller. This is what we do. I told the story. I left it open to the readers to decide. And his publicist contacted me and thanked me for doing a legitimate story. She said, it was a lot of people made fun of him. And I said, well, I appreciate that. I certainly don't want to make fun of him, but I'd like to tell the story in a different way someday that would be funny, but still not, make fun of the situation. And they said, sure. And I thought, oh, now let's see, how do I do this? And during COVID, it came to me. What if that happened to me? When I thought of that, I thought, what if a naked alien with this beautiful female alien landed in my backyard in Cleveland, Ohio? And my backyard's not quite big enough. It would be a small ship. Landed in my backyard, came out, looked at me, and started taking her clothes off. What would I do? So you may be able to tell from my voice. You can certainly tell from my face. And I'm married. Okay. So first thing off, I'd have to ask her, do you understand what marriage is on your planet? And if they'd say, yeah, no problem. Then, and if my wife's not looking out the window, the next thing I would say is, do you understand the concept of cougar on your planet? Because you're too young for me. But if your mom is on board, I might want to be interested. And of course, if I'm 17 years old, I would have been trucking up those stairs so fast, throwing my clothes behind me as I went. So I think guys in particular would think that way. Then I thought, well, what if it was a woman? Okay, and it was a man who did the same thing. The reactions may be could conceivably be different. It depends on what the guy looked like, and all phases of his appearance. I think that so that's where it started. So once I did that, once I got through that one, I went back through all my favorite alien encounter stories. The famous Michelin Man aliens from France. I found out that there's Michelin Man aliens not only in France, they were seen in Kansas City, they were seen in Brazil, they've been seen in a lot of different places. So what would you say if that spaceship landed, or if aliens came and identified themselves to you as aliens and they were shaped like the Michelin Man? What would you say? If it's me, the first thing I'm going to say is, you look like you're under a lot of pressure. Would you like a drink? Or maybe you got here just in time. We have a real inflation problem on our planet. Something like that. So, Barnaby, you hit it on the head, though. My purpose is to open your eyes to the possibilities of what we may encounter when we finally do encounter visitors or beings from our planet, from the future, or whatever you think aliens might be. Be prepared not just to have an armed encounter, but be prepared to be friendly. Be prepared to ask questions. Be prepared for an unusual appearance. But there was an alien encounter in Poland. Guys driving at 4:00 in the morning, coming home. I think he'd had a few because he needed to stop and relieve himself in a field. And he says he sees a light in the field. If he goes after the light, which he obviously had a few, if he goes after the light at 4:00 in the morning, and he comes to a clearing and he sees a spaceship and he sees aliens in the shape of barrels on one leg. The pogo stick aliens is what they were called. And there was a number of them. They had arms. They had one leg. They hopped around on a pogo stick. If that were me, and he watched him from behind a bush. If it were me, the first thing I would do is I'd ask them to move over, maybe to this building over here so you can lean. So it, less tiring than hopping around on your one foot. Next thing I'd ask him is, how do you put your pants on in the morning if they're not naked already? So what he did was they had a pole in their hand, and it was like they were picking up garbage. It's like the people you see along the freeways picking up trash. Often they're doing community service for a local prison. The next thing that hits me is, what if Earth is where some planet sends their prisoners to do community service? Mm-hmm. It could happen. If you're open to the possibilities, Barnaby, it could happen. So what would you say then? What did you do? That would be my first question. You came to the right place. That's legal on Earth, whatever it might be. And then if by chance they were, they became aggressive, for example, they're my least fearsome aliens, because the first thing I would do is run back to the road where I know there's potholes, and something hopping on one leg is not going to have much success chasing me through potholes. So, So those are the kinds of alien stories I talk about in What Would You Say to a Naked Alien? Now, I also have some unusual encounters that I talk about. John Lennon, for example, I was fascinated at Mysterious Universe at the number of rock stars, and that's a relative term. You may not agree that. I think everybody agrees John Lennon's a rock star. There's other people that you may not agree with. They've had UFO encounters, and John in particular has had alien encounters. The first thing everybody says to me is, well, they were on drugs. They were hallucinating. They were. John, to the day he died, swore that the encounters that he had were when he was cold, clean, and sober. And most of the rock stars and musicians that have those encounters say the same thing. They already know what you're going to assume. John is my favorite for a number of reasons. His story, if you're not familiar with it, he was in his May Pang period. He was away from. He had a fight with Yoko, and May Pang was his assistant, his beautiful young assistant. So he moved with her to New York into an apartment, and they're up on a high floor because he can afford it. And he hears a noise out on the balcony outside. So he runs out. Now, again, keeping with the theme of the book, he's naked because if you're a rock star, you're always naked at home. And it doesn't matter if you run out on the balcony. Nobody cares. So he runs out and he sees a spaceship hovering right outside his balcony. He's just beyond excited. And he can see aliens through the window of the ship. So he yells, May, come on out. So May comes out. Of course, May is naked because she's the girlfriend of a rock star. And when you're the girlfriend of a rock star, that's what you do. So so the two of them are standing on the balcony naked, looking at a spaceship filled with aliens looking back at them. John Lennon then says, I got to get a picture of this. Runs back in, comes out with a camera. Now, this is in the late 1970s. So he didn't come out with a phone. He didn't come out with a digital camera. He came out with probably a disposable camera with regular film in it, Kodak. He said he took 2 sets of pictures and then it took off. He said it headed towards the United Nations. And since we never heard about this encounter from the United Nations, I'm assuming they didn't land and talk to them. Then he goes back in and takes the film the next day to a developer. Now, back in those days, this is before your time, you would go to these little kiosks called Photomat, and it was some little high school kid developing film is his part-time job. So this poor kid is tasked with developing film for John Lennon of aliens, and of course they don't come out. How do you say that? You're a high school kid. How do you say to John Lennon, I'm sorry, it's just, they didn't turn out. I hope it was nothing important. So poor John, he goes back home. So he proceeds to draw. John was a great artist, for those of you who remember John, and he drew images of his encounter, which became artwork on the album Walls and Bridges. So if you find that album, you get you have to get the LP so you can see it in 12 by 12 or whatever size that is. Also on the sleeve on the inside, he has drawings of it. So great pictures. So I wrote that story. I'm thinking, wow, this is cool. That why would the aliens seek out John Lennon? And then it hit me. We, back in the beginnings of the space program, launched 4 satellites, four ships actually, Pioneer 1 and 2 and Voyager 1 and 2. Both of them had etchings on gold. I think they were on gold plaques of naked men and women, a naked man and a naked woman. Okay, to let aliens know this is what we look like. They also had recordings, LP style recordings of a number of songs, including the rock song Johnny Be Good by Chuck Berry. Okay, so I'm saying, what if the aliens found this ship, found the disc, played it, liked it? Oh, this is the greatest music we've heard in the galaxy. Where can we find this guy? So they come to Earth. Now they start, they're mind readers. They start looking. Who's thinking about Johnny Be Good and songs like that? John Lennon. Okay, of course. John Lennon probably played Johnny Be Good 1,000 times. They start looking for him. They locate him as they're pulling up to his apartment. 2 naked people come up. He said, the aliens, we found them. We found the people who sent us the record. So, of course, it had to be John Lennon and May Pang for them to find. Now, if you know the story, the story of John Lennon, he had another alien encounter. He had two, as a matter of fact. They may be the same one. One of them, he heard, this was when he was with Yoko, he heard noise outside his apartment in New York again. And he opened the door and he said there were small aliens running around outside his door, making a lot of racket. And then they disappeared. He also told the story to Uri Geller that they gave him an egg and it may have been a golden egg. I don't remember what color it was, but they gave him an egg, and he didn't want to keep it. So he gave it to Geller, the psychic, and said, maybe you can do something with this. And, Uri didn't really promote it that much. I believe that he has it at his museum, which is in Israel. I don't think he has it on display, because if he did, we would know more about it than that. So, and why would they give John Lennon an egg? Because he sang the song, "I Am the Eggman." So you give John Lennon the egg. It all fits together, Barnaby. Stay with me here. So that story intrigued me. What other rock stars? And Jimi Hendrix. Jimi Hendrix had an encounter before he became Jimi Hendrix, when he was still James Hendrix and playing guitar in a rock band after he got out of the service. The band is coming home to New York during a blizzard. Now, I've been in plenty of blizzards in the Cleveland area and in Buffalo, up in the New York area. They said it was so bad that they were afraid to drive. They thought that they would lose control and go off the end, and nobody would ever find them. They'd freeze to death. All of the musicians, including Jimi Hendrix, said a spaceship appeared above their car or vehicle, whatever it might be, their van, and not only led them by light, but cleared the road so that they could get to New York and go home. And Jimi Hendrix lives to become the Jimi Hendrix that we all knew and loved until the age 27. Unbelievable story, unbelievable story. I wonder, what about the people who were behind him? There had to be other people on the road. Who the heck is up there in that car clearing the road for us? So then, if you research Jimi Hendrix, he talks about, sometimes he has said, I'm from another planet. He has said there have been UFOs seen at his concert. There was UFOs seen at his last concert that he gave before he died in Hawaii. I think there were 3 shows that day, and in between the shows, he stayed in a tent, and the people saw a ship. Now, again, this was in 1969. When did he die? Woodstock was 69, 71, somewhere around there. So again, no photographs. It's I have no explanation for that, but no photographs. He gave up one of his last performances was at the Isle of Wight in Europe, and there's a statue of Jimi Hendrix there. And people say that they hear Jimi Hendrix's music when they stand around the statue. Now, you're in the paranormal business. Some people say, well, it's his spirit. Other people say, no, Jimi said, this is one of his quotes, that he would be going, I think, to Jupiter after he died. And so, it could be Jimi sending signals, transmitting through his statue. I'm still here. I'm still making music. There's a great purple haze on Jupiter. You guys need to come and see it. It's possible. You have to be open to the possibilities. So I love those stories. So there's a number of those. Dave Davies from the Kinks had an interesting. All of the Rolling Stones have had UFO experiences or alien encounters, with the exception of Charlie Watts, the drummer, because he was just too cool. I'm too cool to do. But Ron Woods and his wife Joy still gives talks about their encounters in Brazil, and Ron doesn't. I don't know. He just plays and smokes, not necessarily in that order. That's about it. So if you're interested in alien encounters by rock stars, I also have a collection of stories there. One by Albert Einstein. People wonder today, what scientist or who's our reigning genius who we would send out if aliens landed and said, we need to talk to your smartest person. Who would we send? Ken Jennings from Jeopardy? I would like to send him, only because I'd like to see the alien head explode when he says, you have to give me your answers in the form of a question. But is he our smartest person? A lot of people have said, what's his name? Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a good guy. I don't know if he's our smartest person. So Albert Einstein is a story that not everybody knows, was actually taken to Area 51 under the guise that he was supposed to be going to Chicago. And the only reason we know it is because he took a student with him, a college student who was like his student assistant at Yale. He takes her. She didn't know they were going there either. Unfortunately, and I say this, I feel sorry for her. Unfortunately, she was female. Had she taken a male, he would have seen more. But some of the areas, all these guys elbowed her out. Get this chick out of here. We want to kick the tires and lift the hood and see what's going on at the flying saucer. But she said many, many years later, after she felt comfortable talking about it, that Einstein talked to living aliens and saw the bodies of dead aliens. She and he and other people who were there saw spaceships. And of course, they were all sworn to secrecy. Einstein kept the secret. She eventually told it first under a pseudonym, and then eventually, just before she died, in somewhere around 2016, I think, which is why I found out about the story. It came out who she really was, and she ended up being a physicist and possibly a teacher at Yale. So, interesting story that we don't hear about very often. So my question is, not so much. I would fear taking a college student today with me if I invited to see some spaceships. I mean, especially if I'm Albert Einstein. If I'm Albert Einstein, would I take one of today's students? No, of course not, because who knows what they're going to say. You know who this guy is? This is Albert effing Einstein. He's the relativity guy. He's the reason why you people are here. So you better listen to him and don't make fun of his hair either. Here, wait, I want to take a selfie. And that's what it would be. So thank God that she was a physics student and she was able to understand at least some of the things that they experienced when they went to Area 51. So you want to have some fun, you need a stocking stuffer, and you've already bought everything that Barnaby sells. Check out. Go to Amazon.com, put my name in there, and you will up will come. What would you say to a naked space alien? I also have a website, paulseaburn.com. I have a link to the Amazon site. I also have a link to my own podcast, which is called What in the World? It's a weekly podcast where I talk about more weird news stories, more of the world records and strange things that people do than the paranormal. Although my partner loves Bigfoot stories, so if there's a Bigfoot story, I always manage to slip it in and we discuss it. Have fun, Barnaby. You said it at the very beginning, and this is my message to everyone. This is, I've been to the meetings, I've given presentations. We're so serious about this, and there are times to be serious, and there are times to enjoy what you're doing. Enjoy it. Have some fun. Open your mind to the possibilities. Having a sense of humor is a sign of creativity. So if you want to build your creativity, one of the best ways to do it is to build your sense of humor. Read funny things, like my book. Read funny things. Read funny things. Watch funny TV shows. Don't just be a slave to the paranormal shows that don't resolve anything at the end of the show. Okay, you can take a hint from those things. I'm not saying that they're wrong. I'm saying be open to the possibilities. Look at what they're talking about and think, what else could it be? What else could it be? If I were there, how would I deal with the sound that these Bigfoot searchers heard? How would I deal with the light that these people saw in the sky, or the sound, the voices that they heard in this building? What would I do? Is there another way to respond to those kinds of things? And there are, people, there are. So we need to be prepared. I want us to be smart. I want us to have fun. I want us to be smart. Don't just do what the media tells you to do. Don't just fall for the movies that portray everything as our enemy. Let's move on from that to be more open to the possibilities.
Absolutely. That's great, man. Absolutely well said. Terrific. We are coming up on the end of the show here. If you guys have any questions or comments, throw them in the comments section. We have try and get them in before we go. Selena says that she loves your accent.
Oh, my accent. I have no accent. I'm in the Midwest, Selena. We have no accent. That's the accent of the person who has an accent is the guy who's on the screen next to me. I noticed that right away. You have the typical Scandinavian Wisconsin accent, at least in my humble opinion. Barnaby, I noticed that right away. I said, holy smoke. I haven't heard that in a while, but thank you. Thank you. I lived for 28 years in Texas, and I worked very hard. No offense to Texans. I worked very hard not to pick up a Texas accent. Or to pick up the colloquialisms of Texas. So I don't say y'all, I don't say fixin'. I do have cowboy boots, and I like barbecue. But thank you, Celine. Thank you for listening, by the way. That's it's always great to find out who's listening to our shows. I know what a great show you have, Barnaby. This is a nice forum here. I looked through a lot of your podcasts. I listened to a couple of them. You do a super job. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, man.
Next generation. You're the next generation coming up after us old farts. So once we get sucked off, as they say on the ghost sitcom, once we're gone, I need somebody to carry on the humor. I am working on 2 more books, so keep me in mind for next year. This year's almost over, but keep me in mind. We got a lot more. There are just so many. The people from the planet Clarion, whose the music of the planet is the polka. I don't know if you ever heard that story. It's Aura. I can never remember her last name. Aura is the alien's name, and there's other parts of the story that people remember. She fell in love with the guy, and the guy divorced his wife and ran off with her, and that's laid out in the divorce papers. But he heard music coming from the spaceship, and he said, "What is that music?" He knew what it was, but he couldn't believe it. And she said, "That's the polka. That's the music of our planet." She also told him that they don't have alcohol on the planet, which that doesn't work on Earth. Polka, beer, they go hand in hand. You can't have one without the other. So if any aliens are out there listening, come to Cleveland, Ohio, because we have beer, number one, but we have the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame for those who are looking for rock music, and we have the National Polka Hall of Fame right down the street from the National Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You can scratch all your itches all at once by coming to Cleveland, Ohio. And then look me up. I'll show you a good time. I'll be your tour guide.
Wow. I've been to Cleveland. I travel around. I love Ohio. Ohio has more zoos and haunted houses than any other state, like by size and stuff. So I always love Ohio.
You're the Bigfoot guy. One of your many hats is the Bigfoot guy. So this is the epicenter of 3 of the best Bigfoot howl recordings ever made. One is right down the street from where I live in the bricks, the Cuyahoga Valley National Park. One is around Salt Fork, where the big UFO and Bigfoot conferences are held in the middle of Ohio. And then one is due west of me, about 50 miles. Now I can't remember the name of the lake. Mohican Park, where Mohican Lake is. And just a couple years ago on the 4th of July, a lady, Bigfoot researcher, had her recording equipment out and heard what she believed was a Bigfoot, like a female adult and a teen or a child, a younger Bigfoot, calling to each other. like, come to dinner, or where the heck are you, or she doesn't know. I mean, obviously, someone might, but this is a Bigfoot hotbed. We're right in the middle of Michigan, Michigan and Wisconsin and Pennsylvania. So I did an article once. I followed a path. I tracked some Bigfoot sightings, and you could almost make a trail from the UP of Michigan and Wisconsin through across the border, past Toledo into Ohio, across the middle of Ohio into Pennsylvania, where there's a ton of Bigfoot sightings. So if you think that they migrate, there's a lot of evidence to support that. And then the howls as well, from the howl recordings from Ohio. So yeah, Ohio's a great place for the paranormal. You know that with the we don't even want to get into ghosts. That's just plenty of haunted places here. So Native Americans, this was a really big area for Native Americans. The mounds, if you've ever visited the mounds in southern Ohio, oh man, the serpent mounds are called. Look them up, Google them. Great stories about what has happened down there, what people have seen, what they've experienced, and then what they believe the Native Americans may have been involved with at the time when the mounds were built. And many people have done a variety of books on all of the paranormal happenings in Ohio. There's more, so there'll be more books about that. So yeah, you could people like me with this funny accent. I get about my accent. I like that, Selena. Perfect.
Man. Awesome. Well, I look forward to it. I hope that you get your next book out, and let me know. Shoot me an email, and we will get you back on to talk all about it and share more stories of the weird and 40 and stuff that's going on out there, man.
Great. Thank you, Barnaby, and thanks for having me on. Thanks to all of you who are listening, either live or in the future. This is where it's at, podcasting. So. This is where you get the real news. It's and also where you get some better humor than you see on TV today. I'm no longer writing for television. I still write for a couple of comedians who have kept me on their Rolodex or in their address book. But this is my platform as well. So I think this is the place to be. So.
Very cool. We got your links in the show notes and stuff, but you want to remind everyone again where they can find you, where can they listen to your podcast, what's it called, and your book again.
Yes. Okay. So the easiest way is to go to paulseaburn.com. One word, paulseaburn.com. I have a link to my book, What Would You Say to a Naked Space Alien, on Amazon. So you can go that way, or you can go right to Amazon and put my name in, or Naked Alien. Either one of those will bring the book up. I also have a link to my podcast, What in the World, which is on New Cleveland Radio, all one word, .net. That's our platform. I have a page there. You can just click on that, and we're on all of the both we're on YouTube and all the other platforms, so you can download us there. Once a week, Tuesdays at 3:30. We tried to do a live show. Technology, I can't explain it anymore. It's those days are over for me explaining why things don't work in the technical world. But whatever it is, bear with it and keep trying. So yeah, those are the places to go and get your links. I have other books out there, by the way, that I wrote many, many years ago. You mentioned I'm listed in about 30 books, trivia books. I used to work for a publisher called Uncle John's Bathroom Readers. They were, you may have seen them. People keep a book to read in the bathroom, and the rule was the article had to be the exact length of an average time in the bathroom. So I forget what the word count was, but we were very careful. Don't go too far, and certainly don't go too short. And then I worked for their competitor. So you'll find my name in a lot of other places as well. A lot of online stuff. I even worked for the New York Times for a while. They had a joke section on the editorial page. you know, it's if any of you are aspiring writers, people ask me, you know, what does it take to become a successful writer? Like I'm a successful writer. What does it take to be a successful writer? My answer is simple. What you need to do is marry someone who has a good job with insurance, because you're not going to make that kind of money, at least not at the beginning, not for a while, unless you're Stephen King. So marry somebody or be with someone who can give you insurance at least, and then just keep at it. You know, keep banging away. It'll happen. It'll happen. The worst thing you can do is nothing. Absolute worst. Don't stare at a piece of paper, take out a pen and draw on it. Same with your computer. You know, just put words down. If you're into recording, record. If you can't write, talk. Get yourself a recording, you know, whatever you want to record on your PC or on your phone, and talk. Pretend I used to tell this, I taught school, pretend you're at a cocktail party and somebody, you know, you're just bantering with your friends. You know, somebody asks you a question, you answer it. That's how it works. So answer it into your cell phone. And then it's so easy now. There's even translation programs. So you don't even have to type it yourself. You know, you can let it type, and then there's grammar programs. So you can feed it through Grammarly or something like that and clean up all the spelling and grammar. And I mean, in a sense, you're using artificial intelligence, but not in the way everybody hates. You're still doing the work. You're still doing the creative process at the beginning. That's okay. I support that. So anyways, we could ramble on here for hours, but I know you probably got some other shows to do here.
And you have to
maybe, I don't know. You tell me.
Well, it has been a blast, man. I definitely look forward to having you back on and hopefully talking about your next book and some of your other work. So
great. Thank you so much again, Barnaby.
Absolutely, man. All right, well, you take care and we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week here on the Paranormal Spectrum. I have been your host, Barnaby Jones of Cryptids, Anomalies, and the Paranormal Society. I'd like to remind you guys all to head on over and check out all of Paul's stuff on his website. All of his links are in the show notes for today's show. And beyond that, head on over to wisconsincaps.com. Check out all of our stuff. We have a new episode coming out, and get your tickets if you're in Wisconsin to the Cryptids, Anomalies, and Paranormal Convention, or your virtual tickets as well. Anywhere in the world, you can watch all the speakers from that event live. And head on over to Untold Radio and make sure you like, subscribe, and share all the stuff that we got going on there. So until next time, guys, remember, we are all part of the Paranormal Spectrum. Take care, be well, and I'll see you next week.